So I've got you lot for kind of the next 2 hours. I think what we'll do is break the session into 2 sections. They won't be exactly equal, but I'll try and keep them as equal as possible into this sort of 2 units of work that we've been exploring at the MMF. But let's sort of start at the beginning. I'm Paul Bonham. I started in music probably about 25 years ago, putting on gigs at school, and then that turned into a music festival, which still exists. Or hopefully, I'm not involved in it currently, but it's been going for almost 25 years. So hopefully it will make it through this hard time. I then moved into management and worked with an artist that was signed to Atlantic Records called Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly. He never did anything in Iceland, I don't think. But we did okay in the UK, like 4 top 40 singles and, you know, quite big venues, a few thousand size. I was based in a much larger company that managed Jessie J, Rita Ora, Ellie Goulding, Lana Del Rey at the time. And they've disbanded into various different companies now. I then worked at the Arts Council England, which is a public funder for in the music team, and began working with the Music Managers Forum, which is who I'm representing today, to run a program that we've set up with YouTube Music called Accelerator, which is an investment and training program for supporting managers at that sort of tipping point where they're just about to sort of break into having artists that are really sustainable for their living as full-time. It's now in its 2nd year, and it's really fantastic. I'll send a link. I wish YouTube supported managers like this across the world, really, because it's a really great thing. What I notice of the strengths of it is the collaboration when you bring lots and lots of different managers together and solve problems, because it's quite an isolating job sometimes when you're just working on your artists or your campaigns and you're not getting that learning experience from other collaborators. So that's really what we've tried to do with that project, and also the work we do at MMF. I've got slides which I'm going to base most of this presentation on. I'm happy for anyone to do questions as we go through, you know, for clarity or just inquisitivity, or if you've just got a great story to tell that you think the others should hear. You know, going back to what I just said about collaboration, I think it's really good when we've got real life examples of how you're working. But really what I guess this afternoon's going to do is give you an overview of what we think is going on with management and the trends at the moment and the most important issues, focusing on releasing of music. So we'll talk about the Deal's Guide, which I don't know if anyone read in advance. It would be really great for me if we could have a little moment where you do a little introduction each. That just would really help me sort of work out the tone and the right examples or areas that we might go down. So I'm going to go round the screen as I see it, and probably it's going to be hard for me to call out your names because there's lots of letters and arrangements of words which are kind of uncommon to me. But yeah, I'm going to let you laugh at me because I think that might be quite a fun icebreaker. Anyway, and it would just be really good to hear sort of if you're a manager, if you're a label, if you're a publisher, because I know a lot of you are doing multi-tasks, sort of different roles from the brief bios that I saw in advance. So yeah, a quick little intro, and if you do have questions and you're a bit nervous about doing shout outs, Zoom does also have another function in it where you can raise your hand in the participants box, which you can access the participant box on the bottom of the screen. It's participants. It brings up a little thing, and there's a little pop-up, and yeah, there's raise hands. So if you do feel that you want to say something at some point but not jump in, you're welcome to do that. Raise your hand and then I can come back to you. or you could put a question in the chat box if that's your preference.
Paul, I'm just going to jump in really quick and say that I'm not entirely certain whether this is something that everyone will be able to do. This meeting is being currently hosted on Zoom Pro, and I'm not sure. I think that's a function that's only available if you have Zoom webinars or something which you might have, which is probably why you can. I don't see that function on my screen. Does anyone else?
Yes.
What function?
Yeah, I've just got basic Zoom.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Some people are showing hands. It might not work for everyone. I was just sort of, you know, I'm quite into inclusivity and accessibility, and different people have different ways of communicating. Some people don't like shouting out their questions. They'd prefer to type it. Other people would just like to raise a hand. So I'll try and keep my eye on all of those sort of access points, really. That's sort of my vibes. Even that works, Cheryl. Yeah, you can wave, but when the slides are out, I probably won't be able to see all of you. So yeah, really quick introductions. It would just so help me, and it would make it a joy for me if I could sort of learn who you all are. So I'm going to start in the top corner where I think we've got Ingeborg. Yeah, how do I say it? Let's learn.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Ingeborg, that's great. I actually co-run and manage an indie electronic music label.
Okay, great.
Around Icelandic music. And I also closely collaborate with an electronic artist. So this is quite interesting for me.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Henny. Can you say hello?
Hey guys. Yeah, my name is Henny and I co-own Clap Management. That is a management company here in Iceland. I've been in this business for around over a decade now, doing all kinds of different jobs, managing, booking, working, marketing, managing Iceland Airwaves, and yeah, promoting and stuff. But now we have our little company, Clap, and we manage around 6 to 10 artists.
Great. Okay. Aslo?
Yes. You can also use Eva as my middle name.
Okay.
Eva. A lot easier. Yeah, so my name is Auslo. I recently took on to manage ambient electronic band called Rím. They are Icelandic, but like one of the participants in the band is Icelandic, and the other two are based in London and also have UK citizenship. So, or in Folkestone actually. But I also manage Ösp, she's also in the band, and she's a folk indie folk artist.
Okay, great.
Otherwise, my main job is I'm a marketing manager, so I work on that mainly.
Okay, cool. Jacek?
Hi. So my name is Jacek. I've been in the music business since I guess 1999. I started a record label called Artifact Records in Toronto, which is where I used to live. I'm now in Iceland. It's a partnership. There's actually three people full time on it, and it's actually the main part of the business. But over the last handful of years, I've moved also into management, and I have 5 management clients at the moment, and 2 of them are based in Iceland. So I have some kind of business connection with Iceland as well.
Right. Christian?
You are on mute.
Christian, no. If I can come back to you if it's oh no, we're there. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm a musician and will probably be managing myself for a while. So just getting into it.
Cool. Okay. Asmunda? Is it?
Yeah, Ásmundur, that's correct. My background is mainly in the record label business. I mean, I started working as a label manager for some of the major labels during the late 70s, and then later on I started with some colleagues independent labels in the 80s, and then late 80s, and that label is still running. But like 2 years ago, I started, I mean, as you all know, then the role of a record label or a record company in Iceland with local artists has been very much like the 360 degrees. You are like booking, you are kind of managing, or even though it's a loose collaboration on what you are doing, but you kind of are involved in everything. So, but in the recent years, like 2 years ago, I thought I should start to manage one artist, and we are kind of working into the second album this year, I hope. I mean, the schedule was for June, but obviously that was not possible. But I hope we will be able to do a new release for the next year. But what happened was at least we have managed to get a booking agent for Europe. And so, I mean, there has some results been happening. So anyway, I've been here for quite a long time in the business, both working here in the UK and the US as well. Thank you.
Fascinating thing is it just changes all the time. It's always a new business, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what
very much. More than ever during the last 10 years, I suppose.
Cheryl, did you want to add anything? Because did you want to add anything? Introduce yourself. She's on mute. Yeah, Cheryl, we can't hear you.
Oh my gosh, of course, I would completely flex that up. But hi, everyone. Yeah, so I think I've spoken to quite a number, not all of you, but quite a number of you before. My name is Cheryl, and I work with Uton, who's organizing this. So I just want to say hi. I've been living in Iceland now for about 3.5 years, and I've been working with Uton for the past 2.5. And it's been, just really, really great getting to learn about, this side of the music business. Originally from Singapore. Yeah, but hi, everyone. Just wanted to say that.
Great. So, Sana. I'm not sure you got any sound. Shall I give you a moment and we come back? Yeah. Marguerite?
Hi. Yeah, so I work at One Little Indian Records in London, and I've been there for 1.5 years, and I work on the creative digital side of the company, and I've been trying to find my way, what I want to do, and I think that's being on the management side with artists. And so I started working on the side with friends of mine for their electronic project. And I started off as their agent, but then, and this was just a few months ago, but now obviously I couldn't, all of the shows that I had booked for them are not happening. So they asked me to become their manager. So I'm just learning by doing and just starting my way.
Like so many managers, that's sort of the role, really. Learn by doing, get better by sharing. That's kind of my mantra. Sigtri, have I got to try and say the whole word?
Just add
Sigtrigger.
Sigtrigger.
Sigtrigger. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got your Sigtrigger.
Okay. You can call me Siggy. It's okay.
Yeah, I thought it was Siggy, but I just wanted to double check.
No, I run the music export office here and work with Cheryl and Blintis and others. And Very glad to have you, by the way. Thanks for coming.
No, it's great to see you. Because we've not met. Now I know who you are. That's awesome.
Thank you. Likewise. Yes, it's just very interesting to be able to discuss these things. I'm not going to say very much because I'd like to hear. We still have a few people to go through.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting in on this session today, and thank you again for coming, being with us.
Right. Stefan.
What's up?
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for hosting this thing. It's a very cool thing to have going right here. So I'm a musician, artist, producer from North Iceland in Akureyri. And as of now, I do all the other stuff connected to being a musician myself. So I'm not signed to any manager or label or anything like that. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, great. John.
Yes, hi. My name is John. I'm an attorney in Iceland and have been advising clients, mainly artists, on most of the agreements. Well, not maybe most of them, but a lot of agreements relating to the music business, in particular management agreements, and also record label agreements. Not much publishing, but I'm interested in all there is to know about the music business. So
Great. Well, I'm pleased we've got. I'm pleased we've got a lawyer in the house, because a lot of what our work we're finding, particularly on the first section that I'll talk about around managing expectations, is that it's about coming up with different and new ways of working, and a lot of the blockage sometimes is a lawyer saying, no, that's not how a manager works, and so it's great that you're here. We're really interested.
Nice to be here. Really interested.
Cool. Sana, did you? Oh no, I've done Sana, have I? No. You've got your mic now. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to leave the meeting and okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Sunna Margaret, and I'm an artist. I'm a musician, and I don't have a label or anyone, so I'm managing myself. And I just started a label in Switzerland, where I'm based. I co-founded a label called No Salad Records, and yeah, just started in that. So
okay, great. Hannah, Hannah Mia.
Hi, I'm also an artist, managing myself, and until someone else wants to take over. But I've been living from my music for the last 3 or 4 years, so right. I guess I'm doing something right.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. Great, thank you. Hakura, did you want to say hello? Yay.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, my name is Haukur, and I'm the department head of a department here at the Akureyri School of Music that is called Creative Music Making. Okay. So we have a lot of young people here that are writing music, releasing music, and stuff like that. And I head that department, so I'm here basically to learn something about the management role, so I can maybe pass that information along to our students.
Okay.
And I'm also a recording engineer and a drummer and lots of other stuff.
Okay. Sophia?
I'm here. Sorry, my camera won't turn on for some
That's
reason.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah. My name's Sophia. I'm the co-owner of Iceland Sync Management, a management company that me and my partner Camilla started out in Los Angeles in 2014. We both now live in Iceland and run our company from there. And I also have a bachelor's degree in music business. So yeah, so my background is music.
Great.
Business. Yeah.
Brilliant. Good. And Elisa? Oh, I'm not sure your sound's working, coming through. Yeah, it's quite bad. Yeah, we might not get that. Could I suggest that do you think it might be your speaker, like your microphone, or sometimes the sound's not very good if it might get better if you log in and log out again. I found sometimes. Yeah, we're not hearing anything pleasant.
Possibly it's the headphones. If there's a microphone in the headphones.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me
Elisa.
now? Sorry, guys.
Ah, that works. We can hear you now. That sounds brilliant. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, I'm an artist, self-managed and independent. And I've been self-managing myself for around 4 years now.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I know that took a little time, but I think it's really valuable for me. And I think also for each other, if you don't all know one another, you're going to learn sort of, you know, hopefully after this session and stuff. So yeah, what I'm now going to do is go to my screen sharing and start an overview presentation of what we're going to be going through today. So give me 1 second to do that. I should have perhaps made sure it was in the right place. Right. Okay, here we go. So, yeah. Now this should work. I might need to minimize that toolbar on the side, but yeah. So basically, I'm at the Music Managers Forum, and we are a communal voice for not all of, but a really large number of UK-based artist managers. We have now 850 members, and that has like doubled in the past 4 years. I think there's a number of reasons for that, but the biggest reason I would say is that the role of managers has just exponentially grown with the more options and opportunities there are for artists to develop their careers. Really, I think you know, there's the manager's role. I think used to be much more of a gatekeeper to access a particular record label. But now there's so many opportunities in a global industry and just such a multitude of ways to get income from an artist's perspective. The role has become more essential, basically. Artists are freer, they're more, no, you know, they don't have to have permission to do their work. So it's really exciting time, I think, for managers. We support and develop managers that are members, sort of at a political level, but also at a very practical level. You know, we work really, really closely with partners like Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon Music. So we really have these sort of partnerships with a lot of the tech companies, and also accountants and lawyers and, you know, startup companies, and a real range. But our core ones are those really large sort of direct to consumer platforms, really, whether or not that's in a transaction of something like a product, like it is with Amazon, or if it's, you know, in Spotify, or if it's more about developing audiences like it was with the social networks. So that's who we are with 850 members. We're big. Are these slides clear enough? Because I think I need to make them bigger. Is that going to present? Yeah, that's going to work. Yeah. And so we're based all over the UK. We found that we're a really, really diverse bunch. Because we did this research project, Managing Expectations, last year, which was the largest study, we think, in the world about the role of managers. It was really great to sort of demystify some of the myths that it's, you know, not a very creative or diverse area. We found that, you know, quite a high number of females, which was, you know, more than we expected, and quite a large statistic of non-white people as well, 20%, and also that people are based all over the country. It's not just a sort of London centric thing that we think is really great. We asked lots of questions of this survey that informed our report, and what we found was another sort of myth that we demystified, was that managers aren't actually investing in clients. People often think that the manager's role is to go out there and get finance from somewhere else. And also there's a lot of recommendation, I think, in the sector that you shouldn't invest your own money. But we actually found that 74% of people are doing that early startup investment in artists. And so in an industry, perhaps there is a real shift that needs to happen, that they should and could be involved in long-term rights. I don't know how sort of aware you are of the traditional structure of management, but generally a manager gets 20% of net profits, so profits after all of the costs, which at the early level is very, very often, you know, 20% of nothing. So once you've been paying for everything else, what's left is very, very small. And so managers are often not, you know, earning very much at the early stage, particularly. But what we've got is some quite hard evidence that managers are actually kickstarting careers, and it's not just record labels and publishers or public funders. They're actually really, really essential to growing, you know, and supporting artists. So that was a great thing for us. And that does have some complexities around it, because there's some risk if you're a manager, if you're going to be that investor, and perhaps you haven't done any contracts, or you're not the owner of any of the music. There are some risks in there, but we think that they need to be really recognized and looked at. We also sort of got some stats and really recognize that a lot of managers are working incredibly hard, and it's not sort of per hour 9 to 5 role, which, you know, we kind of get as a trade organization, and the role of managers is often seen as the aggressor or the agitator of, you know, publishers and record labels. But we've, you know, a lot of them do work, you know, an office time, because they're a structured company. I know small labels, it's very different. And listening to you all this morning, or just this afternoon, a minute ago, a lot of you are those labels, and you are the manager, and you are the booking agent, and you've got those mixed roles. And that's what we see at the grassroots level, particularly in our membership. So I think there's a lot of similarities at the grassroots level, but the dominant voice in the music industry is kind of different. So the early investors is a really important thing that we think needs to get across. We also sort of really found out that managers' roles are very different to what a lot of people perceive. I think a lot of artists sometimes expect the manager is going to go out there and get them a record deal or get them a publishing deal. But we really found out that a lot of our members are doing, you know, that they're actually at the bottom of the pile nowadays, and people are actually taking the responsibility for all of the label and release management, particularly if the artist is their own label. You know, so the manager's actually functioning like a record label. We also found out that they're taking all of the responsibility, or not all of the responsibility, but a lot of them are taking the responsibility, 76% for the social media role. And again, there's a big skills need, and that's why we do so much focus work with the tech sector and the digital platforms. So that's really what we think the managers' roles have become, is that it's early investors and building audiences through releasing music, which is very different to what it used to be 10 years ago. You know, very, very different. We found that, you know, a lot of 56% of our managers earn less than £10,000 per year. So the majority of the managers are earning a relative, you know, a small amount for their work, but they might be doing it full time. We also found that a lot of them can go on to be quite high earners. So 25% were actually above the national average. So there is a really, you know, it is a serious economic role to play in the music industry. And that's something we were really proud of. So recognizing that there is this diversity, but finding the common grounds as a trade union is what we think is really important, so that the lower earners are learning the skills and connections of the higher earners and the more established, so that there really is a forum. You know, we're more of a forum than a forum and discussion place now, where we try and make our members as active as they can be through mentoring schemes, through think tanks. We do a lot of think tank kind of workshops with one another. You know, through our training events and stuff, you get some of the biggest established managers come to something because they don't know anything about Facebook and they want to, you know, be involved in that conversation. Whereas a 22-year-old might know everything about that and need to meet that person to find out more about the contracts and the you know, access to finance, for example. When we did the survey and report last year, one of the startling facts was actually that live was the most significant revenue stream. And obviously, at this moment in time, that's a massive concern for where we go, you know, and what the future might look like. With so many artists now off the road for, you know, a substantial period, we don't, you know, the management sector is going to be massively hit. And we found in the UK with the sort of recovery plans and the government view at the moment is it's emergency hardship for artists has been quite common, but and trying to open venues, so the things that people understand, the tangible things that are historically there, people seem to be giving support to, but support for managers hasn't really come through at the moment. So we are trying to sort of set that up. So again, you know, there's this sort of, people don't understand the role, so we're doing a lot of advocacy in the sector for the role. In general, I mentioned earlier that the commission is the standard way in which people are paid. So, you know, particularly with live disappearing, which is often the most profitable element, the role is going to be really questioned. And so the way in which we can explore new business models and transparency is going to be really, really important. I think it's tremendous that the number of you here already acting as labels and publishers, because if your artists and your peers and your sector are recognizing that sort of mixed role, I think you're probably ahead of the game than we are in the UK, where a lot of people still see that the manager should only get the 20%, which basically means they should be the last to be paid. You know, in the trail of cash, you would be the last to be paid. And that's quite concerning, I think, at the moment, when you go back to what the managers are actually doing, which is building those audiences, doing that early stage investment. If we lose that, you're going to lose a lot of stability for artists. So I think, you know, from what I've heard from where a lot of you are at the moment, that's amazing that you're working in those ways and those new models. And I'd really like to hear from some of you about how you structure around conflicts, for example. This was just a little bit about the future skills that we learned. Managing vulnerability and mental health is an enormous role for managers, I think. And we've done a mental health guide, which we're just refreshing, but that might be a tool for you to look at, actually. It's a free one on our website. Like, all of our publications are free and accessible for you to look at after. But the mental health guide is really useful. It focuses primarily on looking after the artists and also looking after yourself. So where are your boundaries and how do you manage your own workload and expectations? But yeah, it's a great toolkit there. So that's the sort of overview of where where it feels that management is at. It's very different from it just being about working with a record label. It's actually about being the record label. It's about building that audience. It's about live, and it's about the mental health and well-being of the artists. So quite different, I think. It was quite fascinating work. What we did find, and in the report, which hopefully you've seen, that actually quite a few of the larger companies are now expanding into various different ways. So a great model that I'd talk about would be something like Young Turks, that are the management company that look after FKA Twigs, Sampha and the XX. And they have business arrangements with their clients that involve records, involve publishing, involve management. And the way in which they have to sort of negotiate those through the legal system and with the artist varies, dependent on the needs of that particular artist. So, if they need larger advances or publishing is going to be a major income, primarily they would be the publishing company. In others, they're more the record label. In other relationships, they're just more the management company. So as long as they're not sort of double dipping is what it's seen as. So commissioning, taking the publisher's share and then the manager's share of the publishing as afterwards in the royalty cash flow. It can be quite a transparent and clear relationship that they've structured there. And was it who here was both a label and a manager? Asmundu, were you working in both that ways? Asmunda, did you work in that ways? Did you mind if I call on you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, this is partly due to the development of the Icelandic music industry. Mm-hmm. There were no managers like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So basically the record labels, if you were releasing a record, then you needed to be part of or involved in getting the artist out there, booking them, or even do all of the promotion, etc. But we were at that time never involved in publishing, and I think that concept, like you were talking about, Young Turks, is something that has really happened here, except the artist is controlling everything himself or herself, like some of the people that are involved here. But there are no kind of companies that are working in the way like Young Turks for the Icelandic market. But
so they're not quite as structured as that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But
we think that's a fascinating model, and it's a really, really clear and transparent model, the way in which they've structured. We've then also seen some other management companies working really differently when they've noticed that they are doing different roles. So if they're, say, working with a record label and a publisher, but then they are having to take on the work of the social media, for example, so managing all of the social media, they are clearly cutting out a budget with the record label and providing that as a separate service. Mm-hmm. so that it, they're being very clear with their artist that this is an additional add-on type of service. And I think that's going to become more and more popular. I think it will definitely become more popular if we see a number of agencies go bust and promoters go bust, because I think a lot of managers are going to step in and become the promoter and the agent. And so if they're only getting paid, 20% of a net profit, that's not going to be economically viable for them. So I think the new models of managers, having various different companies for different outputs of the artist are going to become much more common in the future. And it's about being transparent and really clear, I think, about, the different elements. The area that I think is most interesting from the manager's perspective, though, is the issue of rights ownership. Because there's so many options for the artist to be doing, to own their own recordings now. And if if the manager is doing a lot of the label work, should they be getting a cut of the master royalty for, a long time? That's a big area that I think shifting as well. So it's actually managers not just having services, it's having a longer term rights ownership with the artist. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing some of those types of things happen as well now. So they not only are they investing, potentially a small amount of money, they're also can evidence that they're investing their time and skills. There's one manager that we work with called Kwame, who is our vice chair actually, and he works with a lot of artists that use the digital distributors and so are owning their own records. And he very clearly wants a cut of the master rights for the long term. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, record labels have been doing that for years. I'm going to be active and activating this artist from the very start, and so I want to be involved in it for a long amount of time. I spoke to an Australian manager actually recently, and she said that she would have preferred to have had a relationship with an artist that had sacked her. Rather than a 20% of net, she would have preferred a 2% of gross forever. Yeah, she was like, whatever that person does, I just get 2% for the indefinite perpetuity. And I think that's a really, really interesting model, because she worked on the first 3 records of this artist and so had set up his career. And why shouldn't she potentially be getting, a long-term royalty statement, like a royalty income, much like a producer would on a record or a co-writer? And I thought that was a really, really interesting model, which could happen in the future. It hasn't happened at the moment, but I think really, really being honest about what is going to work for you and what's appropriate to the artist that you're working with is a really exciting time to do that. And it's the appropriate thing to do, because artists need the person that's closest to them, which is usually a manager. There's someone that understands their business interests, their mental well-being, and their market and their business and their audience development sort of sides. So the relationship of artist and manager is really, a very special and unique one in the majority of cases where it's successful nowadays, I think. So yeah, the different models are definitely coming through, and that what we're learning at the moment is that there's no fixed set rules. Some of the largest companies are doing things in different ways. Robbie Williams' manager over here, recently, Robbie, he's done very well over the years. They're called IE Music, and they have a data company within their management company. So they're doing all of the data management on Robbie. And so their tickets are going through, their merchandise, they're getting all of that data. They recently did their publishing deal with a bank. So they got the advance from a bank and have Universal Publisher as the administrator. So they're still working with a major publisher, but they got the financing for it from another source so that they could retain that for a longer period than what the publisher would allow. So, you know, managers are often the mavericks and breaking the new rules with the artist's intention at the forefront. This is the sort of thing that I think we're seeing now, that actually every artist and every manager needs to navigate what they think is their own primary income stream, and work out a business model, a sort of longer term business model for how that's going to benefit the artist and sustain a manager through a period of time. Because all of these areas have very different cash flows and very different risks associated to them. So, you know, merchandise, pretty much you could work that out on a per head on a live gig, but that varies between audiences of genres, particularly, you know, rock audiences and pop audiences probably buy more merchandise than a jazz audience, for example. Publishing, you know, different genres, different incomes, you know, different opportunities with the income stream. So I think using a sort of map like this as a tool could be really, really helpful when you're plotting out, just as a business planning tool, is what is realistic here? What sort of relationship am I going to need with my artist? Rather than just looking at the, oh, well, it's a 20% rule because that's what I've been told. It is, that's how the music industry has functioned. You know, in the accelerator program that I run, the managers apply with a business plan, and many of them don't have contracts with their artists at all at that stage, because they haven't had the investment they haven't had the money to do the negotiation for a legal contract, and so they sort of assume that it's like a 20% model, and I kind of challenge them a little bit, and I'm like, well, you know, we've just invested in you on a leadership program, because, you know, we see you as a business leader, but at the moment you don't have a business. You've done a business plan, but you haven't secured any assets. You don't have any relationship with your artists. You don't actually know what your cash flow, you know, how you're going to get paid. So you haven't really got a business. And I think managers often work on that because they love the music, they love the artist, and they're entrepreneurial. So they want to get out there and do things. But securing some of those business relationships, or even thinking about them, helps, rather than just going on an old industry assumption of, oh, it's 20% when some money comes in. Because, you know, in my experience when I work with bands, I work with quite a few solo artists that love touring, but as soon as we went up the grade of a venue, so did the production go up. And so, you know, and so did the number of session musicians. And so it almost became less profitable the bigger we got. You know, and that's why Ed Sheeran's so rich, because he kept his touring costs incredibly cheap. Yeah, you know, they were very clever. His manager used to be the marketing manager of the band that I managed with, and I think probably saw a lot of mistakes. And I think that, you know, you've sort of just got to map out, I think, what you think is realistic with your artist when you're doing that negotiation. And having a business plan, which seems quite unnatural for a lot of managers, I think is a really, really useful thing, because it gets you thinking and visioning, rather than just going along with the old rules. A plan doesn't have to be stuck to. No one has to even see your plan, but having it as your sort of mind map can give you some confidence about where you're heading, and some clarity about who you are and what sort of style of management you see the path going. So I went off on a little bit of a little advocating for that, but you know, that's really what we're seeing, because all of these different models are there. You can work on a 20% commission. You can, you know, we know managers that work on a consultancy per hour type basis. A lot of, you know, very, very established artists put all of their staff on retainers, so they don't actually have a manager. It's more like a staff underneath them, like a business manager or a lawyer, you know, a day-to-day manager, or, you know, a director of creative output. So, you know, there's all sorts of different ways that a manager can do it. I just think that you should probably have some form of agreement when you enter a relationship with an artist. Actually, in the publication, just calling on Tim Clark again, which is coincidental, he sits down with his artists once a year and has an annual review of their working relationship. And then I think he probably does change the business arrangement attached to that. That seems a bit weird, having an annual review with your artist, but you're in business together and you really care about one another's business, so why not? I thought that was a good learning, thing that he mentioned. Because some of the traditions just don't work. The amount of, I don't know if people are familiar with the sunset clause, which is a sort of industry standard thing in management contracts, which should be there to ensure that the artists get paid. No, the artist pays the manager for a set number of years after they've ended a relationship. And this is mainly came about because royalties take a few years to come through. And so it ensures that there's accountability to the manager on work that they would have done and income streams that they would have generated afterwards. But the amount of managers and members that we hear that never get that reporting come through, that they never get that payment, or they don't actually even feel comfortable sometimes. They might have been sacked at a very difficult time. Normally a manager would end a relationship either through malpractice, so that they've done something wrong, or the artist is just in a little bit of a difficult scenario. It might have been that they've been dropped by their record label, or something similar, and a record didn't get very good critical acclaim and the artist thought it was brilliant. And the relationships just change. But the sunset clause, it is a difficult one to withhold, we've noticed. So perhaps the sunset clause, needs to shift. It usually is only appropriate as well to live incomes. No, to royalties from recordings or publishing. But we've got managers in our group that have really advocated that they want royalties coming through on tour profits, because they might have done, going back to the sort of 3 albums sort of that you might do as a manager, and then you might part companies, but your artist might be going in to do arenas and stadiums of the material that you worked on, but you're not getting any of the, you built them up as a live artist, but you're not getting the reaps, you're not reaping any of the income from when they really do break through in the live sector. So one of the managers proposes that in our Managing Expectations report. So if you haven't read it, it's got loads of details and thinking in there that can help you work out your position, I guess, really, and your relationship with your business and your artist. I mean, basically, this is our perception of what the music industry is. It's the artist and manager, and everything else is the satellites and the partners that you work with. I think there's particularly in the UK, and I think in America, that the center of the music industry and where the artist is based is at a record company, and we really don't feel that that's the case anymore. Even if you look at some of the larger, like The Weeknd, I think nowadays licenses to Universal, the large artists are making decisions as the artist and manager, and then working with different partners in different ways, and that's happening at grassroots level, and it's happening at the major level. So this moment, I think, for artists and managers is really important. So that's my little sort of spiel on the way in which I see us, managers positioned. But we also think that comes with a lot of responsibility, and it needs we have a code of conduct, which I think is really important. So it's about putting the artist first and the duty of care. It's about understanding your industry. So you've got to really think about your personal development and professional development. It's about being really clear about where your artist, it sits in that industry. So again, going back to that map that I gave of the various income streams, is it realistic that your artist is going to be in one place? You've got to work out that map. you've got to have that passion for the artist, and yeah, the wider marketplace. So yeah, really sort of developing yourselves again, you know, and understanding how music works outside of just the music industry, because I think music can become very, very closed. And what we've recognized even recently, with this sort of this online gig streaming everything, everyone's sort of playing to their already fan bases, and I've seen some of the best things I've seen is when people have there's a lot of pub quizzes going on, yeah, and I've seen a manager go out and talk into all the pub quiz people and say, can my artist do like a musical interlude in your thing, like, yeah, so they're actually sort of seeing where they can take their artist away outside of just the music space, trying to place. And I think that's really, really clever. That was one of my favorite things I saw with Travis Scott playing in Fortnite, the computer game recently. I think there was 12 million people in Fortnite watching Travis Scott. Again, that's really a knowledge of how the gaming sector's working and put in music in there. So 2 levels there, the grassroots and also the big. So they're the sorts of values and codes that the conduct we expect of our members. We have a podcast called How Did You Manage That, which has some amazing, I think we've got about 10 managers. They're about 40 minutes long, case studies that I'd encourage you all to look at, to have a listen to. They're a real mixed bunch, different managers sort of working in different genres, but I'd encourage you to have a look at them. So that's my sort of thinking on the role of managers right now. Have people got questions from either what I've said today or from the report that we I put around? Has anyone got any question? No one? Okay, any thoughts? Can I ask some of the artists, do you think that that's what managers do? Like, who's just an artist? We've got Suna, were you? Yeah, Suna.
Yeah.
Is that managers do at the moment?
Yeah, wow, I'm the worst person to ask. I don't know. I mean, I kind of had the impression that, yeah, today managers are doing everything.
Yeah.
And actually, I've been thinking about this a lot: the manager role versus the record label role. And yeah, as an artist, you're constantly searching for people to work with, because it's super hard to do all the jobs yourself, writing the music and being your own manager and being kind of impossible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you need partners, you know, and a manager's role is all about finding the appropriate partners and working out partners. And artists can do that themselves. Like, I'm not saying, you know, we're very, don't think that every artist needs a manager. We work a lot with something called the Featured Artists Coalition. They're like a partner of ours. And we think you know, one of the first questions, we get a lot of phone calls from artists saying, oh, I need a manager. And it's like, what do you need the manager for? Do you need them now? You know, and the most attractive thing for a manager is usually an artist that probably only needs one because of time, and you know, the momentum's all there. So it's not that a manager can make everything happen for you; it's that they can work with you to get everything done. I think is more the case that I see.
Yeah, maybe also for contacts.
Yeah, the contacts, the knowledge, the experience,
Yeah, and I've noticed that if you, as an artist, if you're promoting yourself, if you're reaching out to people, they'd rather not hear from you. They want to hear from someone representing you. So that's also, I mean, people have suggested to me to make a fake manager, which I don't really want to do. It's
Yeah. No, I think that just going back to sort of one of my slides a minute ago about it's about that wider industry knowledge and being realistic about where the artist can sit, and guidance that is quite hard for an artist to do, you know, independently on their own, because they've possibly only had their own experience rather than been in multiple bands or worked with different people. And that's what I love about the collaboration that we've encouraged in our sort of membership and our programs, because managers learn from one another. Like in Accelerator, we've got a lot of managers from, you know, they're all different genres, from jazz to drill. Like, you know, it really is a mix, and they learn different elements of the industry. You know, they didn't realize that they could work in a different way. So, you know, that's where I think the manager's role is. Whereas artists can often, it's probably sometimes better for you just to be in your genre or your art form. A manager, I think, should always challenge themselves to get out of their bubble, and be entrepreneurial to learn. Great. Anyone else got any comments or questions? If not, I'm gonna fill up my water. Cheryl.
I think Jacek had a question. He raised his hand. Sorry, just that Jacek raised his hand.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
I used the blue hand thing. I was just going to ask. I was just going to go back to, you had talked about the Young Turks model, where they've got different companies set up, and thus different revenue streams that are coming in for the different kinds of work they're doing, not only management but publishing and record label, and, you know, perhaps live as well. And then, sort of in the same breath, you said as long as they're not double dipping, et cetera, et cetera. And it just and you talked about transparency, and it kind of sounds like those two things are really actually just the same thing, but one of them is a nice way of putting it, and the other one is sort of like a less nice way of putting it. And I was just wondering if you could kind of flesh that out a little bit more, because I find myself in that kind of, like, as I said earlier, I run a record label primarily, but I'm also in management, and some of the there's always that looming discussion of conflict of interest and how you sort that out, not only financially, but just also sort of morally, I suppose, if you could say something about that.
My feeling is that usually a manager wouldn't take a management commission on records or publishing if they own records and publishing. So if they're the rights, you know, the rights holder, they just wouldn't commission those income streams. So they might only commission live if they were the publisher, live fees if they were the publisher and the record label. Quite simply put. In another way, and I know that some members, and I use this as a sort of example, around, I think they could potentially look at, like in touring, if you were the agent and the manager, where I've seen some managers work is, well, they'd either take 10% of gross, like the agent, or 20% of net, dependent on whichever's higher. So that's a sort of way in which there's a transparency coming in, is we're doing the same job, but we're getting paid slightly differently because we're the manager, not the agent. I think that if you've got publishing and records, I mean, it depends on the, you know, how long the terms are on these things as well. If you're licensing or if you're owning in perpetuity, they're very different. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis. Really, it has to be on a case-by-case basis, I think. But I would say the rule of thumb is that if you own publishing and recording income, you're not commissioning the incomes that they would as a manager. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. What would you say about and that actually more like the way I have things set up, but what would you say about the counter argument, which runs something like, should the artists were in a situation where they had two different people or companies doing those jobs, then they would be paying those two revenue streams anyway. So I mean, this is sort of like a weird analogy, but it's almost like saying like you shouldn't get mechanical royalties if you wrote your own song that you're recording because you're the same person, and you know, why should you double dip? But after all, if it was a cover song, the label would be paying those two streams anyway. There's sort of a parallel there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think that it though has to come down to the relationship of how, you know, is the artist finding it acceptable. That's all it would have to come down to. I'm a little bit wary of time because we've still got lots to go on to. But do you mind if I quickly grab a glass of water, and then we're going to the deals guide work. Oh, I'm back. So let's go again.
Can I ask one quick thing? So on this, like when you are an agent, you take 15% of the artist fee. But what about if you're working as the manager and the agent? If you are like reaching promoters and booking shows, and so basically doing the managing and agent at once, how would it work?
Usually, and how it is in the UK is you wouldn't go over 20%, or because that's kind of the standard management. So you wouldn't, but it depends on if you would go gross or net. So if the artist was getting paid £500 for the gig, an agent would take the 10% or 15% off the top of that fee. And then the manager would get the percentage off the net normally. And this is what I was referring to about some managers sort of take the whichever's higher. So they might take 20% of, they'd take 20% of net or 10% of gross, whichever's higher. Yeah. So they'd sort of work out a fair balance to say, I'm not getting paid too much. I often think it depends on the size of the artist as well, and also how many people are in the band. You know, so if it's a solo artist and they're going to come out of every gig with nothing if you're getting paid off the top, because the session musicians are all getting paid and they're never going to earn a fee, that's just not fair. Yeah, that's not fair. But then if it's a band, and I know a manager that recently, she used to manage solo artists and she's only taking on bands now because she's fed up with session musicians getting loads of money on the tours that she does because they ramp up the tours. So, you know, the costs. So I think it needs to be on a case by case, but I would suggest that the gross never went above 20%. That's the sort of feeling that we hear. Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's move into my next bit. Let's pop that down, go up here. Oh, sorry. Present. So I probably don't need to do too much on this. Always do this in training stuff as sort of quick reminder of copyright and income streams, because some people get a little bit confused. But the basically, hopefully you all kind of understand the musical composition and the sound recording as two separate income streams. So when we're talking about publishing rights, which is the musical and performing rights of a track, the musical composition, and then the master rights or the sound recording rights, and that there's two income streams there. I don't want to go into that too much. I just wanted to sort of give a reminder, because when we're going into the sorts of way in which the income streams flow, you've got the reproduction and the physical, which is both publishing or composition right and a physical, mechanical right. as is the public performance income streams. You've got the composition rights, which you get in live performance, which is your performance royalties. What's your collections agency in Iceland? Do you have a collection agency? Which one is it?
It's called Steph.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, that's your live performance income, yeah. Your synchronization incomes, which is
No,
both your...
No,
oh, yeah, sorry, Shao.
Steph is more collecting royalties of public performance in general, radio, and public performances.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I can't see the faces at the moment with the slides up. I should maybe try and arrange that. Get you all in there. So this is just a sort of little overview of where the income streams are and where I'm going to talk about, which is the what you do with your masters, because we're talking about the digital distribution of your masters in a moment. So just because basically it's all about licensing, and that other people or companies are going to want to exploit all of your musics, and your role is to work out who and how they get communicated. And it used to be a lot more simple in the physical market with selling records, but it's got more complex, and this is where the digital work that we've been doing, or the work about the digital market, becomes interesting. So that's just a general slide on some of the on licensing. In the UK, we got the stats that, you know, the streaming is basically the biggest thing. You don't need to know all this. You know all this, I imagine. That streaming has taken over all of the physical market. Although, you know, physical is still a really big part of the industry, and I think that these stats are 2 years old now, or, you know, just about 18 months old, but physical is still quite a big part, particularly in Japan and Germany. So with any international acts, it's really important, I think, still. People don't really, some genres can really survive on streaming, but will they break through? And then others have to rely on the, you know, don't stream. So it varies. It's just a sort of bit of an overview. But it's all the digital services that we've been doing a lot of work on at the moment. And it's complex because a streaming service needs to get permissions to exploit both songs rights. So it's the composition and the recordings. It's both a reproduction and a communication. So it's a bit like a mixture of a radio and going into a record shop and buying the vinyl. And that's where the licensing has got quite, it's not complex because it's been done, you know, the system's there, but the royalties and the opportunities are very variable. The different deals that you make can really, really have such an impact on where you get paid. So our work is all about the digital dollar research work that we've done, that CMU, Complete Music Update, work with us on, have done these amazing free guides that really look into it. What I'm going to do is just focus on the deals for the record labels today, but I would highlight that the other one that I think is really important is the royalties guide, which looks at the songwriters' royalties and how you work with publishers and how publishing works in this, because I think it's really radical work. The fan data guide is really, really useful. If you've got lots of tickets and lots of merchandise and lots of partners, so if you're doing a lot of data transactions, it's a really useful guide. But in general, I'd say the two ones to sort of look at are the royalties and the deals guide. So we're going to go through the deals guide a little bit now. I've done a really quick exercise. And if you've got a pen and paper to hand, please draw this chart and try and scribble out how £10 or €10 or $10 or whatever, you know, basically it's a pie of 100%. Just try and draw out what, you know, what £10 of streaming is, or what one stream it could be. Yeah, how much do you think it's worth? Who gets what sort of percentage? So is it the publisher, the songwriter, the record label, what the digital service provider, so the platform actually takes, and what the recording artist is? I'll be really interested to know what you think. We've got like 2 minutes to do it. Just do it really quick. And then I'm going to pick on a couple of you to just present. We won't have time for everyone to present, but I'm going to do it random. I'm only going to probably go with people that have got video screens on, because it's going to be a lot easier. So, Aslog, how does yours look? Do you want to pull it, pop it up? Let's see.
Done.
Yeah, hey, you're not done.
I'm working on it.
Oh, we can't see it too well.
I'm working on it.
Okay, I can't see it too well, but do you want to talk us through very quickly? I mean, this is just a quick engagement exercise, really. What did you think?
I thought it was, I have actually no idea, but
Have some guesses. Yeah.
Yeah, so my guesses was like, the digital service provider is getting like, I think it's often 10 to 20%.
Okay, yeah.
I think. Record label is probably, I have actually no idea. The 10, 20 probably as well.
Okay,
so
yeah.
It's getting a lot small for the actual artist, it seems like, to be honest. So the songwriter is
okay.
Getting, I don't know.
Okay, right, I'll jump to someone else. Margaret, what do you think? Have you got a view?
I'm actually not so sure, but I think that the DSP take like 5%.
Okay.
And recording artists here, I think it would be like some ridiculously low. It's like I think like 10%. I said.
Okay, I'm going to move on. John.
Sure.
John. Your mic's off, John. What do you think? Throw us a couple of percentages. How do you see this?
I think, well, the recording artist, the record label, and are taking off the master side, which I think from a streaming service is usually around 70% or something like that.
Right.
And I think that the DSP is also taking on the master side, and then the publishing side is around 30%, and the publisher and the songwriter usually split it 50-50.
Okay.
So, and the recording artists and the record label, well, that can vary a lot how much the artists get
subject to
straight
contract
away from
Okay. Anyone else desperate to share? Because if not, I'm just going to dive through. No, right, great. So the next slide will be, I'll just minimize you lot because I can see you all. So this is my next slide, which shows, can you see all that? Right. So the record label, when these streams happen, whichever unit we use, it can be 1 or 100 or 1 million, the digital service provider keeps 30% of it, like of the money. So the 30% is already gone to the digital service provider. These are kind of rule of thumbs. You know, it will vary between streaming to streaming platform. It will depend on if it's a premium, so a paid for subscription stream, or if it's a freemium stream, so an unpaid stream. Yeah, you know, YouTube streams, you need more of they're very different to a Spotify or an Apple Music. But this is the sort of rule of thumb of how the economy works, particularly for something like Spotify. The record label is getting 46% of that money. And subject to contract, then the artist's share goes through. So they're actually getting 40 plus the artist share, which is what, oh, my slide, it's cut off at the bottom. It's about 13%, I think, 11%, isn't it? Yeah. So no, actually, sorry, I've done that wrong. The record label basically gets that 46. Dependent on the agreement they have with the artist, that will get split. So it might be a 50-50 deal that they're on. So 50% might go to the artist if they're recouped, or it might be that they're on a more traditional major label royalty deal that's about sort of 17-18%. So it all depends, but that's the record label's money. The artist's money is what would come through your the artist money would come through directly to the artist through the publishing. So all of these three, the songwriter, the publisher, and the artist, yeah, are what the performance royalties and the writing royalty would be. So the songwriter is 8.4, and then the artist is on about 11%. And then the publisher's actually doing a very small amount. Of course, it slightly depends on how the publisher is accounting to the artists and the songwriters. But that's.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Are you assuming that the songwriter gets his songwriting share completely and then splits the publisher's share with the publisher, or?
Yeah. But that's generally how the streaming works. So the choice, I mean, publishers are getting a very small amount, basically. The publishing and songwriters is a much smaller amount of the digital stream than it is on the recorded and master side. Which is why online, when you see a lot of people complaining about their Spotify, for example, streaming payments being so small, is because the songwriter, they're often looking at their songwriter check and not the recorded side. So they are going to be smaller, and publishing works a lot slower as well. So if you've got 1 million streams, it can take up to 2 years for that money to reach the songwriter. Whereas the money for the artist, you know, the record label, is a lot quicker, because usually you get a monthly statement from your digital service provider, for example. So they're reporting once a month on sales or streams, whereas the publishers are reporting a lot later. And that's where our song royalties guide focuses on that royalty chain of the stream and how long that takes and who that goes through. Because obviously a stream in Australia is going to go through a different local collections agency to reach you in Iceland. There's various different people in that chain that are going to intercept that money. They're going to keep hold of that money. They're going to account for that money at various different points. So that's the kind of, you know, overview of the economy of streaming. The basic advice around streaming platforms is you've just got to, you know, keep promoting your music and have those consistent streams, because they support all the algorithms. they also are more likely, people that use the premium services, which are the curated playlists, you're going to get more money. And generally, it's premium users that are using those playlists. So you want to get those algorithms going. You want everything really, really regular. You can use YouTube to promote your other premium content. So you can use it to sort of signpost out to Spotify, etc. You can sort of control where you want your online traffic to go, so it works for you and where you know your audience sits. There's some great tips around, setting up your playlists and trying to use the digital service providers as social networks, like setting things up that and these are all things that are really important to consider, because it's about who you work with as your partner to get your track on that streaming platform is really, really important, because there's going to be lots of different options that we're going to talk over in a moment. I don't think you need to know some of that. It's all pretty basic. The streaming streaming numbers, you need quantity. It's about having lots and lots of streams and regulars, and it mounts up. Yeah. But the deals guide talks about 10 different options that we've identified for artists and managers right now. And they're all about the essential fact that you are going to have to get a distribution deal in place to get on digital streaming platforms. We've identified 10, as I said, and I'm going to jump to another set of slides now, because they're way better presented than than this presentation I have here, and I couldn't unlock this from my colleague. But I'm going to talk through some of the deals that are there. So yeah, of the 10 deals, they basically start from the very free options that you can do, like anyone that's wrote a track can get involved with, through to the major record label. And here are our 10. Sorry, I accidentally closed the presentation. It did. And I find my computer gets a bit over zoomed. Gets tired of zooming. Right. Yeah, we've got 10 deals. Here. And they're all pretty similar, but it comes down to the sort of detail that you want, because you get various, you get different benefits to them, as we're kind of talk through now. The straightforward setup, the DIY distributor type options, where you just pay a subscription per year. It can be really cheap to upload as many tracks as you want. You can get on Spotify. You can do that, and it's a really, really simple mechanism. You probably already know this, right through to deal number 10, which is the assignment deal, where you're working with a major partner, probably for a long amount of time, and it's got quite a complex business structure around it. So, yeah. Oh, sorry. It's Right. Why is this program not working? I had to use this other presentation because it just looks a lot better, and now it's not looking that good. Right. Right. Yeah. So that's the basic model. You're basically just getting your digital distribution. Nothing else. No relationships. No thinking. You can, however, get a lot of distributors, and they are working on this. There's programs or distributors like Amuse are very good at this. They're Swedish based. You can be looking at getting an advance for your distribution. I see quite a lot of urban artists doing this. If they're regularly releasing tracks, and the distributor can really notice that there's a trend in what they're doing, they can be getting that money to advance. So that can be really, really useful. Oh. Hello. Yeah. So you might have a business model where you can negotiate to get that cash advance, which can help you with recordings. It can help you with your content generation, basically. There's one of the managers of my accelerator program that's just been offered 200 grand, $200,000 to deliver 20 tracks and videos to a digital distributor. So that's a deal that's there. However, from a management point of view, I was asking him how he was going to get paid, and it feels that he would be, because the distributor is expecting that advance to be put into creative costs, he'd only be getting paid on the back end. And I think that there's a big conundrum for managers at the moment, with digital distributors in general offering marketing money in advances for content, but they're not actually allowing the manager to sustain their project management cost. And I think there's a lot of a discussion to go on there. I do see it happening that some managers have had fees, retainers, consultancies from digital distributors when they're delivering content in this way. And I think that's quite a savvy way to sort of structure your business, actually, if you're working with a high turnover of digital artists, digital content artists that are releasing tracks regularly. A model like this can be really, really good. If you've got like an album artist, I think it's a lot harder, something like this, unless you've got that track record. So that's the sort of digital distributor with an advance option. Some distributors, the more standard distributors will do, you want your physical distribution, you want your digital distribution. They're going to be a lot better at some of the marketing issues that you need with retailers. So they're going to get you various relationships with platforms and sites. So that's an option too. The next option is when you're actually really relying on your distributor to do the marketing. And so companies like AWOL do a lot of this, as you probably know. Do you know Artists Without Labels, AWOL, as it used to be called, Artists Without Labels, but it's AWOL. It's part of Cobalt. They can offer a lot of these services. Yep. But from a manager's perspective, those can be quite labor intensive because you're suddenly managing lots and lots of teams, and you're working with without a label structure. So something like label services or distribution deal with an actual label where people are all in the same house can be a real beneficial option. So like Caroline, which is Universal's label services, or the Orchard, can do so much of that in-house. And I think a lot of managers like that type of thing, this type of option, because you've got that assistance and partnership with a label rather than you having to coordinate lots of different resources. The next kind of option that we've identified is all the larger deals. Yeah, the larger label deals, or the the independents, the major labels or the sorry, what's the yeah, the assignment deal. So yeah, you've got your profit shares when you're doing a 50-50, which is my deal number 8. Your indie assignment, which means they own the copyright for life, or the major, when you assign your rights. What I've got here on this graph is basically this shows you the sort of economic, the top level on these slides shows you the money that the artist is going to be getting, and the other side sort of shows you the weighting that the cut that the distributor or partner is going to be taking. So as you'll see, if you're doing that sort of deal 1 thing, you're going to get most of the money, but you're not going to get any of the support, which is why the percentage is really, really low. A lot, you know, you can get distributors that are taking no percent. They just take that upright fee, but then you've got to do all the work. You know, there's some, is that preferable? You know, is that something that you want to do? I think that a lot of managers currently are wanting to sit around this sort of distribution deal with label, or with, so option number 6 or 7. You want to get the money, but you want to have some control. I think that's a really happy point for a lot of our members right now, because they're getting that sustainable income. They're getting enough resource and partnership. So I think that's a good option. You know, there's definitely a lot of people veering away from the major deal right now, where you might get an advance, you know, which allows you to kickstart an artist, but they certainly don't want to stay there. One of our members recently was talking about how, you know, the best thing a manager can do is get you a advance deal and then not get your record released, and then you can move to one of these other options and put your music out. Yeah, you know, so you get your advance, you don't release your album, and you release it in your own way if you can. So that's the 10 options. I'd like to sort of highlight that there's, you know, there's now just so much choice. And again, I think it goes back to that planning that you need to do as an artist and a manager about what you think is realistically achievable and comfortable for you. And sit down and work some of those out. You know, have that navigation exercise quite early on in your relationship with your clients, because I think it manages expectations, which, you know, going back to earlier, the research project, the reason we came up with that title is that that's what a manager's job seems to be nowadays, is managing the expectations of the artists, the partners, and us as a trade body about the whole way in which people recognize what managers are doing and how they're doing things differently, and really appropriately and tailored to the talent that they work with. Yeah, you know, I think there's all sorts of things to look at there. I'm now going to jump back to my other slide because I'll forward you both of these as well. I can do that. But I couldn't get the layout of that other chart earlier and it was frustrating me. So we've talked about the deals that are out there. Does anyone here have sort of a preference to the sorts of deals? Does anyone hate label services or distributors, or have any thoughts on these 10 options? Does anyone know of a different one that we've not considered? Just unmic if you do. No, great, okay. So these are the sorts of things that you can negotiate. As I talked about, you can be quite a la carte, I think, nowadays, particularly if you've got an artist that is got some clout or power. I think Believe are really good at the moment. I hear Amuse that I mentioned earlier are really good. They're Swedish. I hear a lot of good things about the Orchard. I think that you know, if you can get that type of, that's a Sony company, if you can get that sort of relationship going, I think you can do really well. Yeah, there's all sorts of options out there. But the negotiation points that you've really got to think about, is it exclusive? So how long are you going to be in a relationship? Do you want those rights back in the future? All of the major labels generally want a slice of your live. Is that something that you need to compromise? You know, a lot of career artists really can't wait to get off the major, because live's where they make the money. The record is more of a marketing tool, an audience development tool for the tours that are happening, or the catalog. You know, a lot of the time, a new record is a really, really good way to market your old catalog and your merchandise. Just trying to avoid the expectation that there might be live work coming in the next few months. You know, try and think of new ways that new records can support artists. I think, you know, re-releasing albums, remarketing albums is going to become a really important thing. I think a lot of artists focus entirely on their new product, but actually, as managers, you've got to be looking at all of the assets that an artist has done. I thought Nick Cave did something really clever recently in this lockdown. Rather than doing lots of performance, you know, at home gigs, he set up Nick Cave, that is like a TV channel. I don't know if you saw Nick Cave TV, which is just an archive loop on YouTube, 24-hour loop of videos, of off-cut footage, of all this sort of stuff that they've had lying around over the 25-year career he's got. And it's there as a really great asset. So that's going to be doing something that is totally different to trying to replicate a live show. It's something they already had. So just some, you know, and I think this is where it gets really important, is, you know, about the sort of decisions you make is, are you going to be able to have access to these things in the long run with a career artist? Or are you going to have to work with another rights holder that might not care for your work particularly? Is it going to, I mean, copyrights disappear. I know bands that can't get their records back from Universal, and Universal claims it doesn't even own it, and it's not on Spotify, and that's not helping no one. Yeah, you know, there were some maybe mistakes made along the way, and whereas now there's so many options, I think. What we've done, and this is a little bit complex to explain, and it's best used as a tool in your own time. But we've got a deals calculator, basically, which is free for everyone to use. And you can sort of, I think it's probably handy when you've got various offers or examples, because you can put them in and work out how a different type of deal would work. So on our deals calculator, you put in, say, what the advances are, what the license that you might be doing, or the relationship, you know, the period that you're going to be working with a partner on, a distributor, and you can put in the amount of spend that you're expecting, so the money that's going to have to be recouped, and you can work out actually what these various different options might look like. So it's a really, really good tool to use when you're, I would always suggest that you focus on getting the offers, no matter what they are. You know, making your content and your work really attractive first. And then when you get a partner present, oh, this is the way we work, then using a tool like this to give a bit of comparison and perspective on what's possible. So if you've got, you know, say a distributor's offering a small advance and a certain royalty, you could use this calculator to look at actually a 50-50 deal with an indie label. And you might know that indie label, but you as a manager are going to have to work hard to get them interested. So work out actually if the economics match your expectations. Mm-hmm. So it's a really handy tool for you to use at some point, but it's quite hard to discuss it online now. And there is, that's kind of an overview of our deals guide. I'm really keen that we have the next sort of 10 minutes for some questions or suggestions or thoughts, or who's done deals, like what, you know, what type of deals have people done and what problems have they come across, or what successes, what's really worked for some of you. Anyone got any thoughts?
I just want to ask you if you could kind of go briefly through again the distribution with label services and the distribution deal with label.
Okay, right.
Terms, does that differ?
So
is it different?
Yeah. Usually, like where the label services is normally it normally means that the distributor is leaving the artist or manager to find their own team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's used, and it can be very good, particularly if you've got a sort of established artist or someone that's got traction. It means that you can go and sort of a la carte your system.
I get it.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, a distribution label might be, so Believe, for example, have their own record label. AWOL have their own record label.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the thing. Yeah. Okay. So you might, with a distribution with label, they might be doing all of your stuff. It might come out on AWOL Records stroke, you know, my own record label, but really it's theirs. I think with that you kind of lose the platforms that indies give you, because they generally have a great website and they connect their artists together more. Yeah. You know, but but often, you know, it will come with a higher advance and a higher marketing spend if they're going to own that recording for a longer time.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone use any of the sort of DistroKid level of the things that you just pay one-off server? Yeah, I see a few nods there. How do you find those? Suna, did you want to comment? Do you think there's a difference between them?
I've only used DistroKid.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I haven't released by myself that much, but I used DistroKid a few times. I mean, basically you have to be paying them every year for the rest of your life, I think, if you want the stuff to stay where it was distributed.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's a bit too much, I would say.
I think it's really interesting that more established artists don't use them.
Yeah.
I you know, because you get such a high royalty on it, but they don't seem to have. I think a lot of artists see the value in having those label services of distributors that can go in there. They can pitch you for playlists. That, you know, it almost feels that everyone still, you know, relies on that rather than just a track going up there. So you know, I think that if you can grow through those options, it makes sense at the first couple of years, I imagine, but the career doesn't seem to sit there.
No, I'd probably now I'd probably rather want to work with someone like Believe, or where you have where you have more options.
Yeah.
Less robots.
Yeah.
What are the bigger artists actually using?
Well, I mean, it's really variant. Really varies. But now, who was it? There's a artist called Passenger. I think he used DistroKid and did incredibly well out of it. But a lot of people moved to AWOL at one point. Like, I know that was a big move. I think, certainly the urban artists at the moment love ADA, which is, through Warner. And, Stormzy came through there. So I think that it comes down to the people a lot of the time and the relationships they've got. So I know a lot of people that use ADA at the moment. I think it sort of it varies between genre and relationships. And I'm. Do you have any sort of present? Do they have any presence in Iceland? Like who's
distributing? Or...
Yeah, like who do you think's like cares about Iceland? Like, is there any of the distributors at Iceland Airwaves?
Orkut was here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
The Orchid, the Orchid was at Iceland Airwaves last year. There is also a local homegrown distributor called Dreifir. I believe they work very closely with providers abroad as well.
And AWOL had a keynote at Airwaves last year. Alison Donald.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Alice. Yeah. I mean, again, they're a really, really clever company. I think AWOL, because they've got some great artistic A&Rs in there. Alison's made some.
I wanted to add, if it's okay, because
go for it.
I've used a few distributors. I used to start with TuneCore, like a few years ago, and then I tried Dreifir out as well here, the local one, and I just got accepted to AWOL, and I've uploaded like 2 songs up there.
Right.
And I would definitely recommend trying to get into something like that, because I've had problems with TuneCore that has to do with like changing the metadata. Such, like they don't offer that in any way, and with like AWOL it's been no problem and really good help. I would not personally recommend like Dreifir for pitching to playlists. They're really convenient to put music through, because they just do it for you, but they don't really pitch you to any playlists. So it's you kind of have to find what works for you. But I would definitely not recommend TuneCore from my experience. But
from what I've observed over the years, it does feel that it's the ones that have a presence, and that's why I sort of said, who cares? Like, who's got a presence in your market? Because I think that they're the ones that are more artistically motivated to be doing things. And that hits a sort of barometer of quality. And certainly when you hear, I've heard a lot of this Spotify kind of language is about mood and curating an experience. It's all of their playlists they're made to match mood and listener experience. They're not just they're not just random tracks that are all put up there. And I think that those trying to work out where you sit artistically, I think, can probably really help because of the language that gets used and the assumptions, I think, probably that playlist curators make with different genres of music and different moods, because there is quite a lot of distinction between those digital distributors, I think, when it comes to genre.
Just one question: if you compare the DistroKid to Orkut to AWOL, if you compare, for example, those 3, like what would you say about the 3 different, just in short, like as comparison to each other?
I think I've not used DistroKid, so I'm going with Sunna's experience on that. I think TuneCore it's unknown what their quality is. It's so easily accessible, that I think that there's probably a lot of bad music that goes through it. That the playlists would respond to it very differently to AWOL, which has a quality, an application process in there. Even though they're open to everyone, there is a sort of, they want to see that you've got a marketing plan. They want to know that you're a bit serious, because they don't want to be hassling the digital distributors with everything. Yeah. And so I would say that if you can get on something like AWOL, which, you know, you're going to need to think about your biog and your social media presence. I don't think it has to be a really high level. It just has to be considered, because there's a lot of people out there that make music that just want to whack it up on the internet because they think they're brilliant. And they're not trying to build an audience or a fan base. And you know, there's a lot of people that just think, oh yeah, I can whack and everyone's gonna love it. Whereas I think AWOL are looking for that evidence of quality and consideration in there. So that's what I'd say.
So Orchard and AWOL is like in the same level, right?
Yeah.
And then the DistroKid is maybe in between, and then TuneCore is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the high.
That's the. Thank you.
You know, you possibly, to build your career and your careers of your artists, have to use each one at each stage. Yeah. Remember, a lot of them are very short-term relationships, and you can usually move your way and your tracks. You know, if you're owning your rights at this level, you can work so many different ways. Yeah. Cool. Do people have further questions or thoughts? Because we're supposed to end at 5 and we're nearly, well, we are there now. Cheryl, do you have any?
I have. Oh, okay. No, I don't. Well, you go.
Okay. Well, as I said, and you might have seen it in advance, but the Managing Expectations report is available for free, and I would really think that it's a great thing to read, because I was kind of the editor, but I found it a fascinating project. You know, it really reflected the diversity of hard work that people do. I think the deals guide and the calculator that goes along with it are there to help you make decisions about what you want, you know, what you can do and what the options are. And then there's other publications there for you to access as well. So, you know, whilst we are the MMF UK, we're really, really proud of working with people internationally. We're part of the EMA, which is the European Music Managers Alliance. And you know, we work really closely with them. It was an honor to be invited by Siggy to get to know you guys. As I said at the beginning of the session, it's was my plan for my 40th birthday was supposed to come to Iceland. So I hope to come by the end of the year. But that's all not in our hands, is it? But as I said, Iceland Airwaves is on my birthday, and I hope that all of you are there and we could all say hello. But until then, you know, we don't know. Keep safe, everyone. And yeah, thank you for your time. If you do have questions, I'll send the presentation and my contacts over to Cheryl.
Right. Thank you again. I was just going to say, I had raised my hand, but I just wanted to, because I wanted to ask you about something that you already addressed, which was
okay.
If you could recommend any further reading material on these subjects, but you've already done that.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't have the participants box open, even though I said I would. And
never mind.
There's lots of you. Yeah, no, I'll send over the links of the things that we've got. Also, it's probably worth like we work with CMU updates. It's a mailing list that you can get, comes every day, and that's really, really useful. Good, you know, news that I recommend everyone gets on. Music Ally also do a free subscription to their newsletter for managers. So that's worth getting on as well, and that really looks at digital trends. So I can forward over a lot of. I'll do a little list of things for you, Siggy.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much again.
Right. Enjoy your weekends.
You too.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Bye 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 bye.
Bye. Bye.